Good morning, Port St. Lucie. Welcome back to another episode of PSL Daily Download, your first stop to all things real estate in Port St. Lucie. My name is Jaime, and welcome back to the channel. Today is May 6th, 2024. Today we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to end the video with why we live in an upside down world and why good news is bad news and bad news is good news. And I'll explain, give you a little bit of context on what's going on in the market and how that's affecting mortgage rates specifically. So let's get our day started. So I'm going to jump right in. I won't dive in too deep into the numbers this morning. As we can see, it's still early in the month and there really hasn't been a big drop or increase in any of our inventory numbers. So I'll let you take a look at those. The one that I will touch on is the number of currently reduced listings did have a pretty sizable drop of over 3%. I am assuming, because none of the other buckets either decreased or increased, that these were properties that were reduced and finally sold and came off, like they say, like kind of came off the books, right off got recorded in the county. So, or better yet, taken off of realtor.com. So, not a lot of movement in inventory. So, we're going to jump in to Mortgage News Daily's daily rate survey. These are the rates as of the close of the last business day, in this case, Friday. So these are not today's rates. As a matter of fact, I don't believe I've seen any of the rates come out this morning. But let's see where they ended up last week. So the 30-year fixed rate, Mortgage News Daily had it at 7.28, a decrease of 0.09. And the 30-year FHA was at 6.70, which is a decrease of 0.12%. So this comes off the back of the Fed FOMC meeting on Wednesday. Also, the jobs report came out on Friday, which came below expectations. So again, I'm going to touch on why good news, and that was bad news, but yet the market rallied on it and is currently rallying. So let's go to the U.S. News U.S. market tracker by CNBC. And again, I like this website specifically because it kind of tracks the things that I personally like to follow. So we'll see straight greens. Again, going back to what I was just talking about. So, and I won't get into the numbers. I'll just touch on the 10-year yield. It's at 4.04, which is up 0.004. So really, it's kind of flat. I mean, to be honest with you. So it has not a lot of movement, but as we can see, all green in the market this morning to start the day and to start the week. Now, what am I talking about when I say good news is bad news is good news? So the FOMC meeting with Chairman Jerome Powell, he announced that the rates were going to stay unchanged. And specifically at the beginning of the year, we were expecting rate cuts to come in. Now, because we had a strong GDP number the month before, we had strong job numbers, things like that. That's all good news. Because of that good news, the market was kind of pushed downward because the expectation of the rates coming in that environment were unlikely until this last week, right? Jerome Powell touched on that they were going to keep the rates the same, but that if he saw the job numbers come in lower than expected, or they start seeing cracking in the economy, things like that, breaking the financial system, that they would not hesitate to start dropping rates. You fast forward till Friday, and the job numbers came out below expectation. Bad news, right? Nobody wants to see bad job numbers, right? That means that it's harder for people to find work, or less people have found work in that environment, or as of last month. So that's obviously bad news, but the market took it as good news. And the reason why they take it as good news is because now there is more likely that the Fed may potentially start dropping interest rates, which I'm going to get into that into the next chart here, into the next page. But just keep in mind, and something about inflation, I heard the term the enemy of my enemy, right? Which I it kind of stuck with me. It's pretty cool. So our enemy is obviously inflation, right? Nobody wants inflation. Inflation's bad, especially for the the lower income population. So, but the enemy of inflation is unemployment, right? Now, it's still our enemy. We don't want unemployment to go up, but because unemployment increasing decreases inflation, generally speaking, right? There's a correlation that when unemployment rises, inflation or GDP condenses or lowers, that we're okay with having an enemy to our enemy, even though they're both not good. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing. And going back to bad news is good news. I'm going to go to the next chart, and why in the short term it makes sense. I just want to put a little color to that and kind of expand that of how that actually works out or has worked out, because this time could be different. We don't know what the economy, we don't know what the numbers are going to look like. We don't know how the economy is going to react in today's world. Today's economy is completely different than it was at any time in this chart. So things may be different. We have a big population working the gig economy, so unemployment doesn't get affected as easily. We have a lot more debt, both personally and nationally, right? Among other things that, again, I'm not an expert at, but it's good to at least have the general knowledge of. So here's the few things I want to touch on. So these are the interest rates, this orange line right up here. You can see how the federal government, and we're actually at the low end, so kind of been steeping down here through the decades. But these gray bars, those are recessions, right? So the one thing I want to touch on is, again, when let's say unemployment starts going up, the market gets excited. Why? Because it's more likely that the Fed will drop rates. As we can see here, we had a top right over here, and this was like in the late 80s, sorry. And the the market saw something coming, or I'm sorry, the Fed saw something coming, so they started lowering rates. But at the end of the day, and again, the market reacts positively usually when the interest rates drop, except that it leads us right into that recession in just 90, I believe it was 92 when it actually hit. We fast forward a decade, same thing. If I zoom in, and I don't know if I could here, but if you zoom in to this little chart right here, you can see where the Fed actually dropped the rates right before that recession. Okay. Let's fast forward to 2008, right? Everyone remembers here the Great Recession. Um, they were flat for a while, or they stayed higher for longer, like the saying goes. And then they started dropping the rates here right before a recession. It led into that recession. Let's fast forward another decade or so. Again, we hit the top, the market stays there, and we drop right into a recession. So the point here is that even though the interest rates may go down, just keep keep in mind that there's something is driving the Fed to lower the rates, which may result in something that is not actually good overall for everyone. So the initial thought might be, oh, that's great. That's going to boost home sales. That's going to lower my credit cards. It's going to make it easier. But just remember, there might be an underlying issue, as there was in all of these instances. That's going back 40 years. So you can see the late 70s, early 80s. That was a hot mess. I obviously was too young, so I don't want to give too much context into that. But these here, I was already in the mortgage industry in all three of these recessions, and I was really aware of what was going on. So as we can see, we're at the top. We've been higher for longer, but if they announce, or when they announce, because at some point I do believe they will announce a lowering of the interest rates, just keep in mind there might be a reason, or there will be a reason why they are dropping interest rates that may impact us down the road. And some of those impacts come weeks, months, even years later. Okay, so it just has to play out. But again, this time could be different. I just want to give you a little context because you may hear, "Hey, the rates are going down. That's great news. We're gun ho. We're gonna, do whatever." But just know that there might be something behind this. Um, and again, why bad news in this case is good news. So hopefully you got some value from this video. If you did, please don't forget to click the like and the subscribe button. I'm going to go ahead and add a little video right over here. I intend to actually post another interview. I had a great interview with Chris Walker from Keller Williams Port St. Lucie. If you did not catch that, um, I would ask you to go watch it. It was great. He talked about solar panels and the experience he's had in it. So he gave a lot of great tips for realtors and home buyers, or sorry, home sellers as well. So other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your Monday, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.